Hello and welcome to the Trash Talk Podcast. I remember what I'm supposed to say. I'm your host JJ, and today I'm here with Sergey. This is a good start. So I don't know. What are we going to talk about? Did something interesting happen lately, Sergey?
I don't know, like NASA streamed or something.
Oh yeah, right, dude. Mars 2020.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, naming is not their strong suit, but I mean, I get it, right? But like, take a page out of video games, right? Like, if you think something's gonna be relevant for more than 1 year, name it after the last year, not the first one. I don't know. I mean, it's a nitpick, right? It seems very in line with science, right? Like, the coronavirus outbreak was in 2019, they named it COVID-19, and now it's 2021 and we still have COVID, I don't know. It's completely, it's not actually completely unrelated, but
it's still crazy to me that we already have 2021.
As some people have said, we're just going to consider this an extension of 2020. 2021 truly starts whenever we get rid of the virus. Which... I don't know. That might take a second. Especially with new, faster spreading mutations. But that is not what we're talking about today. I get sidetracked very easily. Yeah, so they landed a new rover on Mars, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. It's been on there for 0 Mars days and also 0 Earth days, according to Wikipedia.
Yes, that is good to know. Yeah, I mean, we saw the live stream when they landed, so that was...
Yep.
Well, I mean, for starters, whenever you're watching this, it's gonna be 1 day, almost 2. As a matter of fact, by the time you're watching this, it might be just about 2, like, depending on when you're watching it.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought about the fact that you could be watching these years down the line. So, but when this comes out, I think it's like an hour or 2 until it's 2 Earth days.
Yeah, around about. Should be right, yeah.
Yeah. So...
That sounds correct.
So, yeah. I guess... Let's talk about, now that we brought it up, the day difference, right? The day on Mars is 40 minutes longer than the day on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the Mars rover uses solar power? Or what is because they say charges overnight, or they run it and it charges, something like that. It has to recharge. I don't know how exactly, actually, but Martian days are apparently important. So...
Yes.
Did you say it sleeps at night and it recharges and then they run it again? Sergey is doing some research.
It likely has solar panels.
So, it's kind of interesting that, speaking of the day-night difference, that, of course, the entire team that is working on the project now is basically...
has a moving schedule.
Yeah, no. Their day-night schedule is now based on the Mars day rather than the Earth day, which doesn't sound very drastic. And in fairness, right, having a 40-minute longer day is far from bad. As a matter of fact, I believe our natural circadian cycle actually wants 26 hours, so they're closer to that than for regular Earth day. The problem being, of course, as you said, their schedule will slip, right? So eventually, like, their day-night cycle, while still having almost the same duration as that of Earth, will almost be entirely opposite, and then will slowly move back to being normal. Which...
sounds just like my sleep schedule.
I was about to say, first of all, like, big deal, right? I've been doing this for years. Not quite as systematically, but I think the biggest problem is that, but one thing they also hit on in their press conference, that because a lot of them have to work from home, it's not as easy, right? If you were, like, in an isolated building, like, all day long, then you could literally adjust all the lighting and stuff to simulate a day-night cycle that would actually fit your sleeping schedule, and you would barely even notice it. But as soon as you have contact with the outside world, daylight is going to mess with you whenever it's supposed to be night, and of course, again, circadian cycle, right? That's a bit unfortunate. It's probably not the most interesting or important aspect to talk about, but I thought I'd mention it now that we brought up the Earth days versus Mars days.
Okay, the rover has a multi-mission radioisotope thermoelectric generator. I don't know exactly what it does. Probably has something to do with radiation.
I mean, it sounded like it had something to do with radiation, but then you also said something about thermal, so I don't know.
Yep.
Thermal generators usually operate on temperature differentials, if I'm not mistaken. I might be thinking of something specific. It's like not the most important thing right now, but yeah.
Okay, it uses pretty much 5 kilograms or 11 pounds of plutonium-238 oxide as its power source.
That is probably radioactive.
Yep. So yeah, probably no solar panels. Doesn't look like it.
So it's actually kind of disappointing that it is using nuclear power, because that means that the power source is limited. So once it runs out, it's gonna be done. Now, granted, it's probably gonna take a long, long while until it does run out.
Yeah. But I mean, solar panels also do get worse over time.
I suppose, yeah.
So that's that.
They should just have like an entire rover that's just there to maintain other rovers, like make repairs.
Yep.
Like every now and again, they just ship like a new package with just replacement parts. Honestly, that's not like the worst idea.
I mean, as soon as humans are on Mars, I think that's gonna be happening.
Yeah. Also, I think the problem, why they don't repair them is that by the time they would need to repair elements, they could just send a newer, better rover over. And it just doesn't make sense to like hugely invest into older models. But
yeah,
we finally might get an answer to the question that David Bowie has been asking decades ago. Is there life on Mars?
We're probably not gonna receive an answer to that.
I mean, I guess
at least not with this robot.
Weren't they gonna take samples to determine whether there, was life on Mars?
Oh yeah, it's gonna take samples, but it's not gonna shoot them up or anything.
Right, so the sample return mission that they have also extensively talked about will be what actually gives us the answer. I believe they said it was gonna launch in like 25, 26 or something. So...
as far as I know, the original plan was for it to be in 26.
Okay.
But now it's moved to 28.
Oh, 28. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. They also said, I think there was for Mars Rover, there's only a launch window every 2 years. So... They basically can't move to 27. Or 25 for that matter. Wait, actually 21 is... I guess it's not exactly 2 years. It doesn't matter. But it's kind of disappointing with those sort of things, just how long the process takes.
Oh, yeah.
I understand.
Also, just the travel time.
Yeah.
7 months.
I mean, it makes sense, right, that it's necessary for it to take a while. If they just send, like, something up there right now that could possibly retrieve the samples, but then because it isn't engineered right, it just blows up somewhere along the way. Like, that helps no one. Also, so I understand how actually making sure to have the highest likelihood of success, you might take some time. Also, just the sheer amount of work that has to go into making all of this work. So it's kind of like, oh, cool, the thing landed, and then they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're probably gonna start driving it around like a week or so. We're gonna have to have it deployed sensors and like recharge a couple times and get some software updates, and I'm like, great, right? Like the hype train is just not really going, right? Like there's like one big event happens and then we all wait. They said it's gonna probably be a couple of days until we get the video footage. I think they said we might get a high-res photo, a high-res color photo, today, by which I mean yesterday, whenever this comes out. Maybe, possibly.
Well, let me look that up.
I watched the press conference that they made after the launch as well, and I believe they mentioned that they had let's say GoPros, but they had something along those lines attached to the multiple elements of the lander and the rover, and they had video footage from that they were going to send back, but because it takes a while, they were going to initially send back one singular image from one of those cameras, and they're hoping that they were going to get that out on Friday, I think, with Thursday being the launch, and Saturday being the day that this video comes out. And Sergey doing research during the show is both cool to have the facts and not the most entertaining thing to watch. So I guess I'm just going to keep talking about the Mars mission. What I thought was interesting, speaking of imaging, they have a drone alongside the rover that is going to be a helicopter, and if it does in fact successfully fly as they are expecting it to, then there would be the first flight we have successfully, the first motorized flight to take place off Earth initiated by humans, so that's really cool. And
historic event, man.
it doesn't sound very special, like, oh yeah, great, they're gonna like have a drone, but like, because of the low air density on Mars, it's actually very hard to make a drone work there. Now, granted, it does only have a third of the gravity, so that's probably going to help them a little bit, but that is to say that Mars has roughly a third of the gravity of Earth. And so they are gonna actually try to launch that, I think, later, like in a week or so. Actually, they might have been more. I think they might have to drive to a location for that first. One of the things that they also mentioned, which I thought was kind of fascinating to think about, is that the little drone is mounted under the rover, and until they have deployed it, they're somewhat limited in where they can drive, because they can't actually hit the drone with any rocks that they drive over, so the mobility of the rover is a bit more limited until they launch the drone. But, of course, for the sample taking, that is not exactly great. But for the drone testing, it was necessary to do it that way. So, I think it's kind of interesting to think about all of the different projects and experimentation that they want to do with the Mars Rover project effectively, and how some of those might hinder each other, and you have to kind of find a compromise to make them all work like collectively in the best way that you can. I thought that was a very interesting balancing act that they had to kind of go into, that I haven't heard anyone really talk about, right? They mentioned all the things that they're doing.
I actually haven't thought about that too, because they can't really send many more rovers up there.
Yeah, no.
First of all, they cost a lot, and there's only like a 1 in 2 year window.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but
it's not great.
As I said, I think it's one of those points that no one brings up, but I thought about it and was like, it kind of sucks that it's going to take them longer to take their samples and get us any possible data, maybe, because they have to make the stupid flight, but on the other hand, it's very useful to have a drone up there, and it's very cool that they're going to fly it, and I was like, we can't have our... I'm doing the... Fuck, where's my camera angle? I'm doing the weighing motion.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the one problem about those tight camera angles. But anyways, so, you kind of have to weigh this all up against one another, and while if you're more interested in one aspect of the project, it might be a bit disappointing that another aspect is slowing it down. You just have to think of the immense amount of work that has to go into actually making those go all in one trip, have all those projects work, and it's just fascinating the amount of logistics that goes into that project as well. And I think, as I said, it's one of the less discussed aspects of this. Did you want to say something, Sergey?
I can't find information about whether the drone is self-powered or needs recharging at the Mars rover itself.
I wouldn't be surprised if it
Trying
needed
to find it out right now.
Because I believe it weighed, like, what did they say? I think they said it weighed less than 1.8 kilos. So it weighs like about so it weighs like about 4 pounds. So it's very light.
Well, yeah, it's 1.8 kilos, 4 pounds.
That is what I said.
Yep.
And so it's very light, which is part of how they get it off the ground, because they can only create so much lift because of the thin atmosphere. And so they actually had to make it very light, so I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't have a power source.
Its maximum altitude is only like 5 meters.
I mean, to be fair, they did,
or 16 feet.
They did say that their initial plan for the first flight was literally just to put it down, have the Mars rover drive away, have the thing go straight up 3 meters, and then go back down again. Like, that's all they want to do for their first flight. But the thing is...
Makes sense.
You really don't need a lot of altitude, right? I think the main...
Not really.
I mean, the main use of this thing is going to be to get places that a rover can't by getting over obstacles. And generally speaking, there's no huge walls on Mars that I'm aware of. And so you're probably gonna make do with the height that you're getting. Now, of course, for like aerial pictures, it would be nice to have something that is closer than a satellite and further than 5 meters off the ground. But there's only so much we can do, and I think it is very impressive in the first place that we're gonna have what we have. It's crazy to think that the first flight on Mars might take place in 2021, if all goes according to plan, when the first flight on Earth took place in 1903. That's 118 years. Might I remind you that the oldest person ever lived to the age of, what was it, 121, 122, somewhere around there.
122.
Yeah. The time span between the first flight on Earth and the first flight on Mars is less than that of the longest living human, assuming that the first flight goes successfully. That the drone actually works. It's crazy!
We're back to historical perspectives.
No! But I kind of had to bring that up, right? Like, I thought about that and I was like, it's not been that long ago that the Wright brothers had their first flight. And so I actually just, by coincidence, saw that I had it in my notes from another podcast before that was in 1903. And I just thought about, like, dude, 118 years. Like, that's a relatively short time period. I mean, I guess it's even crazier
Technology
to think that,
is advancing really, really fast.
I mean, honestly, it might sound more impressive if you talk about the fact that the Wright brothers started their flight in 1903, and we had the first animals in space in 1947. Right? 44 years later. The time from just basic flight to like space travel in the most rudimentary form is so insanely short. And now we're launching flying things on a different planet, and then we're gonna launch a spacecraft from Mars on the return mission, the sample return mission. So that's not gonna take all that long. Like, that's gonna happen within... I mean, you said 28 is when they're gonna go to Mars. I don't know when exactly the return mission is gonna launch its return, but I would assume maybe in the next window after that, like 2030 or something. So, right? That's like... That's crazy. I just find it fascinating.
I can't, man.
Yeah. And we now have basic AI on Mars. Right? Like, the... I believe we talked about it off the air right before we went on, right? The pathfinding capabilities of...
It can drive completely autonomously.
Yes.
Just needs... like the starting position, which it obviously knows because it is there right now, and the destination point, and it automatically on its own finds the best route, or the route that it thinks is the best, and tries to drive it.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic
without human input.
It's kind of ironic that this is not the one named Pathfinder, but I digress. I mean,
true.
Kind of, sort of. I found it funny that they said they're gonna have a while where they can have a connection because the sun will be in between Earth and Mars, and they're gonna use that time to update, like, to improve the software further, the pathfinding software, and then gonna upload it after. I'm like, okay, so you're gonna make the rover better at being autonomous after the time where you have a blackout connection. Wouldn't it make sense to implement that before? So that you can actually use the time when you don't have a connection to drive the thing somewhere. I mean...
theoretically.
I mean, I'm sure there's good reason why they're not doing it, because it's way too obvious for them to miss that, right? Like, oh, why don't we do this earlier? I assume it's because the team also has more time to work on that once they don't have anything else to do, though.
Mm-hmm.
Though I would assume that a lot of the people that actually work directly with the rover are probably not the same people that are writing the code, but... And that's also something I noticed. The extreme amount of specialization, right? If you look at the, like, launch control room and how, like, every system has, like, one person responsible for it, and it's, like, their sole job is checking this one system.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very normal for space flights, and it makes sense, so that even if a small system has an error, like, you're not overlooking it because you're looking at something more important. But it's still fascinating to see just how many people are involved with just, like, a single phase of, like, the 7 minutes of death, as they call it, the entry, descent, and landing. Like, just
7 minutes of terror. I think
7
it
minutes
was
of terror. What did I say?
Death.
Oh yeah, no, I meant to say terror. Yeah, no, terror, definitely. Death would be bad. No, I mean, like, of course, right? Like, no one died, I think.
Hopefully.
Though we'll be very careful with allergies around there, because apparently they have a ritual about eating peanuts. So, no, but like, right, like just the entry, descent, and landing team is like huge, and it's like, again, like, their critical phase of operations is 7 minutes long, and they have like a room full of people. It's like, it's crazy to think what goes into these sort of missions. And, you know, like, that's not even talking about anything else that they're doing.
True.
I'm just waiting for a time whenever, you know how whenever a generation grows up, like, whatever has happened before you were born, or before you were, like, a certain age, I think 60s is where people often put the cutoff, is just how the world has always been. You know, how it's like, Gen Z has had 9/11 be a historical event pretty much their entire life, right? We were the kids born after 95, so that means we don't personally remember 9/11. So it's just a thing that happened. Whereas the older generations remember it actually going down. And so I'm just waiting for the generation where the fact that there is life outside of Earth, or at least was life outside of Earth, is just an understood fact, right? Like, no one is really doubting. I mean, sure, right? Flat Earthers are a thing, so there's probably going to be people who doubt it, but it's like a generally established fact, because it seems pretty likely that that is the case right now. But just to think that there's going to be people that grow up just knowing that factually, like for a fact, that this is how the world is, and never really living through the discovery that that is definitively the case. Which, to be fair,
or imagine like made. Even growing up on Mars.
That poses a lot of problems, because I don't know how having about a third of Earth's gravity is going to necessarily affect child development. It's probably not the best thing.
Probably not, but it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean, the question is if by then they're going to have something figured out to hopefully prevent any of the side effects. I mean,
yeah.
There's actually a sci-fi show that kind of deals with that sort of an idea, which is The Expanse, where they actually treat like children.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, they actually like take a more scientific approach to certain of the sci-fi elements, like children born in outer space. Oftentimes, like being taller and having weaker bones, and there's literally a thing where people there that are like born in the belt, as it were, on like an asteroid or on spaceships, sometimes literally can't live on Earth because the gravity is just crushing them. Like, their body can't actually hold them up against gravity because they never had to. So,
which is crazy to think about.
That's an interesting thought, and so it is possible that you could have babies on Mars, and that they could live relatively healthy lives on Mars, but could also never go back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a bit yikes in its own right. Especially if we haven't fully terraformed Mars, right? Like, because life inside of like biodomes or whatnot would be a lot more restrictive than the relatively free and open life on Earth. I mean, it's not great in all aspects, but and there would definitely be, I would assume there would be advantages to being on Mars, but not having the choice is probably not exactly great either.
That is true. Yep.
We've been on this for a while. Is there anything else you want to add to the Mars thing? I ended up talking way more than I thought I would, but you ended up researching a lot more, so...
That is, yeah. I don't think I have anything more to say. Now that I said a lot, this topic.
I like how I picked this topic out for you and then I ended up talking a lot.
Yep.
So I guess, if we're not talking about this all that much more, what is your fact of the week? I actually thought about it for once.
Oh boy. Yes. Let me just quickly confirm the thing.
Yes, do that. I'm going to quickly pull up another thing that we're going to need after this, because I don't know if it has been pulled up already, and...
Yes.
I'm going to put this in viewing so I don't accidentally edit it. Alright, our notes for the podcast say that we're not actually talking about Mars at all, but we'll figure that out in the second topic.
Yes.
Sergey, is your fact factual?
My fact is factual, I know that. I'm just can't find the year in which a certain thing has been fixed.
Okay.
So basically, the Boeing 787
yes
had a bug in its system where if the board computer was on for more than 248 days and a half, roughly,
Okay.
it would turn off the power supply completely, independent
Okay.
of flight phase.
That could
And
cause
that
some problems.
happens, yes. And that happens because they keep track of time, just counting up an integer every 10 milliseconds. And it overflows.
No one could have seen that coming, huh? I mean, I guess you just gotta
And
restart
that
the computer every
thrashes
now
the
and
power
again.
supply. Yes. That is why they introduced a rule to restart the power system after each flight.
Easy fix?
Eh.
I don't see the problem.
Yeah, but I can't seem to find the year in which this bug has been fixed.
Well, could it be because they never fixed it?
No.
So what I can say about that is that
1 second.
it reminds me of the XKCD where he talked about how like there was some issue with the server and you could either like invest a lot of work into fixing it, or you could attach it to one of those timed power connectors that you use for like Christmas lights and such, that it just like turns off once a day and the server restarts, and then that also fixes the problem. That's what I have to think about.
Yeah.
And apparently that fix would
Kinda
only take
similar.
5 minutes.
Okay. But anyway, the bug was still present in 2015.
I swear to God, they just never fixed it.
Probably not.
My fact of the week is less exciting, but arguably funnier. Are you familiar with Jimmy Kimmel?
Nope.
He's one of the...
Don't know who that is.
He's a TV show host. I think he hosts one of the many Tonight shows. The point is...
I don't know.
He is the honorary mayor of Dildo. The town of Dildo in the Canadian province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Great.
That's really the fact. I mean, I could go on about the history of Dildo Newfoundland, but really, it doesn't really matter. It's apparently the word used to have a wider use case back in the day, and so the name wasn't really that weird. But
I mean, like a lot of words back in the day.
Yeah.
Words tend to get more specialized.
One thing that I did notice is that the last, apparently the last known population number, or the very least the one listed on Wikipedia, was 1,234, which I thought was funny because it says 1, 2, 3, 4. It almost sounds like this entire situation is made up, but as far as I'm aware, it is actually real. So you know.
That reminds me of when they measured the height of Mount Everest for the first time. It was like exactly 29,000 feet.
Okay.
Like, exactly. Not one above or below, but when they published the results, they just added an extra 2 feet just to make it seem more accurate.
Oh my god.
Because they thought the general public would believe they just rounded the number.
That's like... I mean, I get it, but also like, what's worse than rounding a number? Just lying about a number. I assume you don't currently have our list of what the numbers 1 through 4 mean.
I can pull it up real quick.
I mean, I have it.
It's not a problem.
The biggest deal, but we are gonna randomly determine a number between 1 and 4. Yes, the black square on the screen does have a purpose. Don't worry about it. So, do you want to do the honors, or should I? Oh, you were already on it, I see.
Yes. So, first would be Would You Rather. Second would be GeoGuessr. Third is Higher Lower. And fourth is Google Feud.
Yes, so I have a four-sided die here. I'm gonna roll the die, and I'm gonna put it in this tray, and then the number that is on the upper side, which, can you read that, Sergey?
God.
Because
One second, let me full screen Discord.
Because the thing is,
it looks like a 3.
It is a 3. Because it's easy for me to tell in person. I know the camera angle is not optimal. I'm gonna maybe look into fixing that at some point in the future. For now, we're gonna have to live with that. The point is, it's a 3. 3 means higher, lower. So, we're playing higher, lower. Did we play higher, lower last time? I feel like we played higher, lower last time.
Could be the case, yes. The dice is rigged.
I don't think it is. Let's do this.
Oh god, my face is cut off.
I like how I fixed the framing last time, and then like your camera angle is slightly different, and yeah. I cannot possibly be bothered to fix this line. I mean, I'm also a bit zoomed out, but it's close enough. Oh, I think we might have had anyways. We're doing classic, and I'm gonna, for a change, let Sergey go first. Sergey.
Oh god. Let me sit up a bit
more
differently.
Popular,
Okay.
Jet Li or Lawrence Taylor?
God, I don't know either. It's a 50-50 guess. Gonna guess that Lawrence Taylor is more popular or searched more just because I think it has something to do with football.
Okay, so
but I don't know.
Jet Li is a movie director. Lawrence Taylor is a football player. I think he's still in college. You said higher, it's lower.
Ooh.
Bada bing, bada boom. My turn. Let's see if I can beat Sergey's score of 0. Barbara Streisand or Carpenter? Okay, I hate those, right? Because they're so different. Like, at least with famous people, you could be like, which one is more famous? I guess people might be looking to get a Carpenter. $500,000, though. I'm gonna say lower. That's very risky. Okay, got it. I'm already better than you.
Ooh.
Erectile dysfunction.
Ooh.
Higher. Grease. Higher.
Oof.
Apparently erectile dysfunction is higher than grease. You heard it here first. Sergey, your turn.
Okay.
Hey, it's 2 dogs. I think.
Boy. I don't know. I'm just gonna guess higher.
And you would be very much correct.
Oh, boy. That's a lot higher.
Pomeranian versus Stranger Things.
I'm gonna rate higher.
I would think so. Yes.
Yeah.
North Korea. More or less.
Okay, that one is now dubious.
Yes, North Korea is dubious. You've heard it here first. I'm pretty sure I've heard it other places before, but yes, it is in fact dubious.
Yep. Boy, that could go either way. I'm gonna go. I think I have to go lower.
I would think so. I mean, how much do you research countries versus TV shows, right? Never mind, it's higher. So, Sergey, between his 2 rounds, has a grand total of 2 points. So do I with my first round. So I'm gonna get a second round myself. Beethoven or human trafficking? Now, Beethoven has 1 million. And I believe people don't want to actively look up human trafficking. As much as it is a very real issue, I don't think that they do, so I'm going to go lower, and I was correct. Cleaner. That's very ambiguous, but I'm going to go higher. That is correct.
Yeah. Same as I expected it to be.
Currency converter. Seems very specific. I would use the word exchange. I'm going to go lower.
I think currency converter means you just calculate the difference, or the exchange rate.
Right. I guess whenever I do that, I literally just type in like the conversion, because both Google and DuckDuckGo have integrated widgets for that. Let's play one more round each, and then we're going to go to the second topic. Sergey,
okay.
Universal Pictures versus midwifery.
I don't know what the second one is. I'm gonna guess lower.
It's a bit weird, right? Okay, I don't know who would look for midwifery, right? Like, looking for midwives, yes, sure, right? But, like, midwifery, it's higher.
Oh, what the fuck?
Sergey?
This is rigged.
Between 3 rounds,
this is rigged.
You've got a grand total of 2 points. I have so far gotten 4 points in my first 2 rounds, but, of course, I'm going to play again anyways. Child marriage or dementia? Dementia is higher. Mickey Mouse is even higher than that, I would assume. It is. DC Comics. Interesting. Now, the question is, do people look for DC Comics, or would they rather look for, Superman, Supergirl, Hawkman, Shining Knight, The Spectre, Red Tornado? Okay,
I can't see the mouse, man.
I think... Oh, right, also, I just realized that, 2 of these are totally covered. Anyways, I was just showing off how many DC characters, and I'm gonna go higher, but that's a very risky business. Yeah. So, today, our high score for both of us is 2. My average score is also 2. Sergey's average score is 1.33. No, wait, no, it's not even. It's 0.66. I thought for a second you had 4 points.
Yeah.
It's 0.66, well, 0.67, I suppose. TrashcanTV does like proper math, after all, and we're rounding properly. Now, second topic. We talked about biohacking last week, and we kind of only got into what people do with biohacking, and we never got into, like, should they even do it? Is this a thing people should be doing, Sergey?
It's complicated.
Well, that is why we're devoting an entire topic to it and not just answering that as a yes or no question somewhere in between.
Like, generally, overall, I think, sure, why not? But I would draw a line at, like, really, forgot the word, have it on my tongue, really invasive procedures, like replacing one's eye or something.
Yeah, it's a weird discussion, because on the one hand you've got the argument that a lot of biohackers use, which is the idea of democratizing science and making solutions available to people, right? Which is a very good argument, I feel like. Especially when we're talking about treatments that have not been approved yet by the relevant bodies. I guess for medication in the US it would be the FTC, the Food and Drug Administration, other places, other bodies, but the point is, if a treatment that could possibly save your life has not been approved, but you are also, like, actively dying, like, shouldn't you maybe get an opportunity to try it out anyways? Which is not 100% within the biohacking discussion, but it definitely is a little bit, because a lot of it is them. I think one of the things we talked about last time is using CRISPR gene editing to try to fight against genetic diseases, even though it has definitely not been authorized to be used in that way. And so, it's like, if you could save someone's life by going against guidelines in a possibly illegal, but generally considered to be a legal gray area, like, wouldn't you do it? And I can't really argue against that point specifically. I feel like that's a good point.
Yep.
Let's see, what else do I've written down? There's the idea that people talk about with a lot of the augmentation aspect more so than the more medical aspect, where it's like, you're losing your humanity, which is kind of a dumb argument. Like, I'm not less human. I mean, I guess if I replace one of my parts with a non-human part, I am, like, physically less human, but I don't think I'm less of a human being because I replace a part of myself. Yet, I also intuitively have a bit of a feeling that I don't want to do that. But that is arguably more of a personal decision than, like, a categorical argument against the practice.
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you think about that?
Sort of similar. Except like first of all, I want to kind of clarify that with the example of like replacing one's eyes for cameras and stuff, and like somehow hooking them up. If you're blind, yeah, sure, but I kind of find it dubious to do if you have two healthy eyes.
Yeah.
Or like in a similar vein to with other body parts.
Yeah.
But yeah, medicine to save someone's life, yeah, sure. Do that all the way. Don't really mind if it's illegal in some places.
Yeah.
Because that in itself, that the practice is illegal, is kind of dubious in itself, I feel like.
I mean, practicing
why should it be illegal to save
license...
someone's life? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But as long as both parties go in that knowing that, it's okay, I think.
The problem with those sort of things is that it always opens up doors for other stuff, right? That's oftentimes the problem. Of course, saving someone's life against their will, there is an interesting argument, for example, that, not with dubious, scientifically unproven methods, that's, fishing someone out of a lake might still be illegal if you're in Japan, but that's a totally different story. I just, whenever you said, like, saving someone's life should be okay, I was like, huh. I instantly thought of that example for some reason. But one other thing that I thought of is, with the augmentation part especially, you said it should not necessarily be okay, and I think one of the arguments for that is, if you can improve yourself, why shouldn't you do it? And the argument against is, well, if anyone can augment themselves, then inevitably the people with the most money are going to be able to have either the best augmentations or at the very least the safest ones, and thereby that is going to further the existing class divide, which is not good.
Yep.
And of course, a lot of rich assholes, I mean, I'm not saying that all of them are assholes necessarily, but I mean, it stands to reason. Like in Silicon Valley especially.
It's a stereotype for a reason.
Yeah. In Silicon Valley especially, they're trying to expand their lifespans, right? And while from a scientific standpoint, I find it very interesting pursuit. And I mean, heck, I would like to live longer than I would naturally. But also, it's kind of already a bit dubious that the ones that invest the most money, the ones that are doing the most to extend their lifespans are also the ones that invest the most money, and the ones with the most money are already the ones that have so many other advantages, so that's a bit dubious. Now, granted, a lot of stuff that they do end up investing their money into doesn't actually work, and so, in a weird way, you could almost say that when it doesn't work, it's almost great, right? Because they're just throwing away money, which makes them less rich, which closes the divide a little bit. But if it does work, which is, of course, I think the discussion that's more worthy to be had, right? Like, rich people are going to waste their money no matter what. Or at least some. And so, the idea of, how are you gonna get in a position where maybe having a certain augmentation would be advantageous once they get more widespread if you can't afford to have said augmentation?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a really
I don't know, man.
dangerous game.
That is true. The topic is really, really packed, really dense.
Yeah. I think that was the story behind Deus Ex Mankind Divided, if I'm not mistaken. But of like
I haven't played that game.
I haven't either, and I think I have it.
I'm trying kind of sort of to keep myself spoiler free because I eventually want to play it.
Yes, I have it.
I don't know.
I have it. I never played it. Like,
you have it?
I have it.
What?
Like, I have so many games in my Steam library that I've never played. It's crazy.
Disappointment.
I know, right? That reminds me of that one meme, sort of, where it's like, oh, I wonder which of these games I should buy. And then someone in the corner going like, how about what you instead play one of the many games that you already own and have never played? Shut up! Like,
yep.
it's so like, you're right, but shut up.
When you don't have any counter arguments.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, human augmentation is, oh, right.
My camera froze.
Hey,
finally.
It's not a good thing. Oh yeah, we totally tried fixing that before the show started and it didn't work, so that's great. One thing that I think is worth hitting on at the very least as kind of an implication, I'm not sure if this strictly falls under moral implication, but I think it's still worth talking about, is the idea of transhumanism. That the human augmentation with technology is effectively the next step in our evolution.
What was that?
Transhumanism, the fact that we're evolving by upgrading ourselves rather than evolving naturally, because we clearly stopped that process, kind of. Or at the very least, significantly changed it with the environments that we live in.
Mostly. I think nowadays it's more social evolution than actual biological evolution.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things. I think human jaws are still getting smaller. Some people are being born without wisdom teeth these days because of that. So there's definitely still some stuff going on. I think humans are getting taller, though.
But that's been happening for quite a long time already.
I think humans getting taller is more of an environmental and medical thing, because the healthier you are, the more energy your body has to grow. But there's definitely been some changes happening.
I guess, yeah.
But it seems that overall human evolution isn't really doing all that much. And so some people have been posing that a species that is at a point where they're not really required to follow, they're not really subjected to evolutionary pressures anymore. The step for them to get better would be, either genetic engineering or like augmentation with, technology.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about that?
That is a point, though. I feel like that. But that has to do with the time span, though, like time frame. I don't think we're gonna have the technology to basically augment the majority of Earth's population in the next couple of decades.
Yeah.
And in that time frame, I would find it kind of dubious to allow augmentation on oneself, because of the class divide and stuff that you mentioned. But basically, when the technology is established, which I don't know how it's gonna be without people trying it first. But anyway, like when the technology is widespread enough, I feel like it should hopefully be fine to do that.
Yeah.
Because then more people can do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess
Kind of tough for me to explain what.
The idea that, I mean, generally we've seen this with every technology, right? Like, it oftentimes becomes more available to certain people first, but then again, it becomes widespread along the way, right? We talked in the last week, I think it was also, and the week before that, we talked about the whole idea of the future is now, and I think I brought up how, for example, VR headsets used to be very expensive, and now they're much more affordable. And while they're not nearly in every household quite yet, we can also talk about, flat screen TVs. We don't call them that anymore because we don't really have the big boxes anymore. But, you know, they are like everywhere, right? Smartphones. Like everyone has one. Well, not everyone, but even people in third world countries have smartphones, right? They won't have any.
I'm currently speaking with a person that doesn't have a smartphone. Like the thing that you would typically call a smartphone nowadays, at least.
It's an HTC Wildfire S. It has internet capability and it has access to the Google Play Store. I'll have you know it's a smartphone. Now, but yeah, no, I mean, the point is though, right? It's not that I don't have a modern smartphone because it's totally inaccessible to me. It's because I just don't care to have one. And while there is certainly probably people that can't afford to have one, it is so widely spread at this point that it's kind of almost a default assumption that everyone has one. And those used to be rarer. And it generally seems that every technological advancement eventually makes it down to being relatively ubiquitous.
Yeah.
So I guess that is part of what you were saying, right?
Yeah, like basically at that point where you would assume, like the default assumption is that people have it. It should be fine at that point. But I don't know how you're gonna get there without people, like a few selective people, trying it out first and having the advantage on that.
Well, I guess the solution to that would just be in how you select the people, right? You would just do a medical trial, like you would for any medicine. And those people are usually, first of all, they volunteer and then they're selected out of the group of volunteers. People that volunteer for that oftentimes are the ones that actually, interestingly enough, are on the lower end because you usually get a little bit of money for volunteering for those sort of things. And so oftentimes it's actually poor people that would do a lot of like medical trials and whatnot. Now, granted, there's probably some risk associated, which is why a lot of rich people might actually stay away from it, even if it could be a possible upside. So, ironically enough, testing in like a proper laboratory environment would actually mean that the first augmented people would probably not be the rich. So there's actually some nice thing there.
I guess that would be one way.
I mean, the problem after that would be immediately once it becomes like approved and available, then it would be the rich people that are like the ones that are the first to widespread adopted. So it's still not perfect, unless it would be a thing that you could get for free. And also the other problem with that is if you get augmentations from like companies that sell them to you, we get all sorts of issues that we have with digital technology already, where I could see companies selling augmentation, like say you have like an eye implant or something that can connect you directly to the internet, but then you have to pay extra to not have ads shown to you, like just all the time, right? And now you can't close your eyes to not see the ads because they're literally in your eyeball or directly in your brain, right? So there's a lot of
that's another thing.
Very dubious business practices that could be made with like some of the more typical enhancements, like the direct connection with either through the brain or through the sensors to more technology. So that's also, I think there was also movies that actually played on that idea. So, you know, like, we have media that already is predicting that sort of stuff, and quite frankly, it's frightening.
Yeah. I mean, there is already technology in development where you have like lenses that you put on your eyes with screens on them.
Yes. Again, very, very cool idea. I just
Yeah.
worry about the people that are going to be selling them and what they're going to use them for. I mean, at least in that case, you can take them off.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's at least something. There's also a patent, I think, for a TV that recognizes whether you're actually looking at it and can actually even detect motions and sound. And the way that they, I think it's actually described in the patent is where they're going to use it for, like, so you have to actually, like, say, like, an ad slogan or something to make the ad go away, so that's not exactly great either. It's very dystopian.
That is very, very yikes.
Yeah, so, you know, the thing is with the augmentations, like, whether it is just contact lenses or actual, like, eye replacements, for example,
Mm-hmm.
just like certain other things, they are going to become so normal that you're almost at a disadvantage when you don't have them, right? How many forms do you have where you have to give a mobile phone number, right? If you don't have a mobile phone, that's bad. How many services do you have to access to the internet? So if you don't have internet access, you've got a problem. And if those will become more widespread, there will also be places where you just need to have them. And so if companies are going to abuse them, then it's going to be really bad if you have the choice of either being disadvantaged because you don't have them, or be constantly exposed to ads, for example, because you have to have them.
Yeah.
I think that's the really worrying part about that. Once biohacking becomes more, well, less hacky and more commercialized, is when a lot of the, like, big problems come into play.
Yeah.
I guess it's less
like
more straight up cyberpunk, but
my solution, or like the thing I hope is gonna happen, is that the open source community is also gonna jump on that and engineer some form of similar device that does not require like constant internet access or something like that.
yeah, I mean,
Where it's basically not controlled by a company.
Yeah, I mean, most of the existing biohacking is kind of a sort of like collaborative open source projects a lot. It seems to have very much the same spirit as those sort of groups. So in that sense, it is somewhat promising. And also, it is worth noting that if something becomes so universal, oftentimes governments will step in to regulate them to some degree to avoid, like, the worst kinds of exploitation, though. It will vary from government to government again. You have stuff like net neutrality being protected, at least in some countries, because it's been realized that the internet is something that everyone has to use, or definitely does use. So we kind of have to put measures in place that if you're using it, you can use it fairly. So, you know.
Yeah.
But also, some countries like the US don't have net neutrality, so it definitely isn't exactly the most promising to think about the fact that another technology could be essential to alive, and there could be very important countries that don't have regulations on them, possibly. So,
I know, it's really, really dubious.
I guess my main problem is just with late stage capitalism, less so than the actual technology. But I feel like that's always one with every new technology, right? Like, how is late stage capitalism and the military going to abuse it? And both of them are very promising. I didn't even talk about military application for biohacking, but Jesus. I mean, probably not as much of a problem, because they'll just use drones instead. So,
I don't know, like, having infrared vision just directly as one of my primary imagery sensors would be kind of practical, I feel like.
Yes.
Especially in a military aspect.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of situations, they just prefer to send drones over soldiers already, because the loss of life is less. But I guess, especially if the soldiers get more effective, then they'll also get into like the whole like, is it cheaper to just augment a soldier and send him versus sending a drone? And then if the soldier is cheaper, they'll use the soldier, because human lives don't have any value to the military and late-stage capitalism. So,
Yeah.
Oh god. Do you have anything else you want to bring up about the moral implications of biohacking and human augmentation?
I don't think I have anything.
Because we got pretty grim towards the end there. How about songs of the week? Do we have a song of the week?
Yes, or at least kind of. I have a music piece again.
Of course you do.
This time it's the Swan Lake from Tchaikovsky.
Doesn't ring a bell, but okay.
Yeah. A lot of people heard it, but don't know the name. As with a lot of classical music pieces.
Exactly, right? I'm not that surprised. Yeah, my song of the week is Trailblazers by the band Hammerfall. Going back to a band that I used a lot in the older days, but I haven't used as much recently, so I don't want to say go back to the oldies, because it's probably one of the newer songs of the week I've had in terms of release, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like the video if you enjoyed it. Leave us a comment with like anything relevant to the topics we talked about, or topic suggestions even, or your own song of the week. I mean, I know you do it anyways, so I don't have to tell you. Subscribe to the channel for more of these videos if you aren't already. Hit the bell if that's what you like. Join the Discord server, link in the description below. Check out our main channel where we do Hearthstone content. I think we'll have a report probably tomorrow about BlizzCon, because that's still going on today, so we'll see about that. And, Sergey.
That's it.
That's it.